Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining ARC's weekly fireside chat. Today, we will be talking about one of the most dearest topics to my heart, Mother's Day, motherhood, incarceration, and reentry. We have some incredible mothers that will be presenting today. I just want to say something before I pass it off to Norma Cumpian, our director of our women's and non-binary department. Mother's Day is very near and dear to me. My mom, who everyone sent so many prayers to, is recovering from cancer. My mom is my rock. She was the person who guided me, who's always pushed me. And so Mother's Day is always important to me. And I think Mother's Day should be 365 days a year, period. If you want to debate me on that, let me know. But without further ado, I want to hand the show off to Norma so that she can introduce these amazing moms. Norma, take it away. It's all yours.
Thank you, Sam. That is great to hear about your mom. We've all been worried about her and how that's going. And I'm super excited now to start this off on such a great note. Thank you. My name is Norma Cumpian, and I am formerly incarcerated. I spent 18 years incarcerated. I came home quite a while ago, and I'm super excited to be here today to host this with these amazing moms. So first, we'd like to just kind of hear from everybody a little bit to introduce themselves, let us know how they're doing, and tell us a favorite thing about being a mom. So let's start with Cynthia.
Hi, my name is Cynthia, and I am formerly incarcerated. I did not do as much time as Norma or any of the ladies on here, but I was only incarcerated for a couple of years. And what was the question?
How you're doing today and your favorite thing about being a mom.
I'm doing great today. And the favorite thing about being a mom is that I'm never alone.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. Christina, what about you? Hi.
Hi. My name is Christina, and I am formerly incarcerated. I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. When I first arrived in incarceration, my 3 children, my son was 6 weeks old, my youngest daughter was 1.5, my oldest was 2.5. And, being sentenced to life without the possibility of parole and being a mother from behind the walls was something that was very emotional and very hard to do. But I have been given the great blessing and opportunity to be the wonderful mother that I am, here physically in person with my children. And every day is a wonderful day with my kids. Every day being able to see them in person and getting and giving hugs and being able to be involved with their teachers and schooling, new interviews for jobs. Just every day is a blessing. And I think Mother's Day should be celebrated 365 days a year. I do agree.
Yes. Sam has your vote, I think, for governor or senator, at least.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Kamala, how are you today?
I am great. What about you? Hi, guys. My name is Kamal Greene. I am also formerly incarcerated. I was sentenced to 26 to life, of which I did 13 years. Praise God. I actually have 7 children. And when I was arrested, my kids ranged from, they were 5 years old, my youngest, all the way to 17 years old, my oldest. And I'm just happy to say I'm back with them. My favorite thing about being a mom is that I agree with what she said. You always have somebody to love, but at the same time, I don't know, it's sometimes an unexplainable feeling. I love my kids more than I love my life.
Yes, I have 7 kids as well. And I'm 8 grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
No grandchildren, Kamoa?
Yes, I have one whose birthday was actually, we spent celebrating yesterday. So
yes, nice.
I posted there's nothing that's better than being a grandma.
That's what Cynthia always says. You have an ally here. Cynthia is always talking about
Yes.
One more license.
Grandmother. Yeah. You have an ally. So let me and let me answer too. I have a son. My son is older now, 20-ish, and he's coming tomorrow. He's coming here for Mother's Day. So it'll be our first Mother's Day together outside of the walls on Sunday. So I'm super excited, as you can imagine. And I think my favorite thing about being a mom is being kind of responsible or being held accountable to him. I know that I'm always mindful of him. I'm always making decisions based on him. Like he's always there. So I guess it's like my answer is like all of your answers. Like he's always there. Like it's something that's me. It makes me. It's always there. I love that. So I would like to hear from each of you about how, if you were mothers before you went to prison, or if you were a mother after you came home from prison, how did that look like? Kamoa, do you want to start?
Yes, I was actually, well, my case is kind of unique. I had a cold case. So when my crime first happened, I only had 2 children. I didn't get caught for my crime until 15 years later. So I had accumulated my other 5 children before I actually was incarcerated. So I had all of my children before I actually went to prison.
Wow. Okay. All right. What about you, Cynthia?
Oh, mine's easy. I had all of them already. I had all of them. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Because we have another question that goes with this. But okay.
Okay.
What about you, Christina?
Yes, I had all 3 of my children before incarceration. And as I said, they were all very young. They were 6 weeks old, newborn.
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
So I was pregnant with my son when I was in the county jail, in LA County Jail, the civil brand. I was pregnant with my son, so he was with me in the county jail my time there. So that was also a thing, being pregnant in incarceration. It's almost like you're not alone, like how we were talking about. It's, he was always there with me. So that's me. So how did incarceration how did it change your relationship? And then how did you function? Like how did that happen? How did incarceration change your relationship with your kids? Christina?
Well, that was something that was definitely always at the front of my mind, with my children being so young and coming to see me for the first 3 years in county. And then being able to finally hold my son after him being 6 weeks old and at the age of 4. And it was so hard when I first seen him in person, because he was so used to hearing my voice over the phone, that when I was finally able to see him and give him a hug at the age of 4, he was emotional. He cried. He didn't really know who I was, in person. And it was really hard to deal with. And I had to ask myself, being sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, how am I going to be a mother to my children from behind the walls? How am I going to build that bond that is needed, that is deserved? And in order to do so, I had to come up with creative ways. And, that was, tracing my handprint and sending it to them and telling them, if you ever feel alone, put your hand on mine and I'm always with you, and just really getting to know them from afar throughout the years, and keeping close, communication with them. But it was very difficult, and it is still difficult to this day.
Okay. Kamoa?
For me, I spent 2 years in county fighting my case, and I was able to see my children, all 7 of them at that point. After that, when I went to prison, this is emotional for me, just being a mom. After that, I was not able to see my children for the rest of my incarceration. So I did 13 years. I didn't see my kids for 11 years. I didn't see my kids until I came home. They were actually scattered throughout in different places. Some would let me see them, said that I could, and then pulled it back. I actually had kids that went into the foster system as well. I did get a chance to see 3 of my children during a custody hearing that I had to go to while I was incarcerated. The judge had said that I could see my kids, but the foster parents that they were with did not adhere to anything that the judge said. So I wasn't able to see my kids. But I tell every mother that I deal with inside that it doesn't matter who tries to keep you from your kids. If your kids know who you are and they love you and they're coming. When my kids turned 18, my kids sought me out, found me, and while they didn't come see me, I was able to talk to them. So, you know, there's hope I went through a whole struggle where my kids were concerned, and I cried every single day of my 13 years of incarceration about my kids.
That's really hard to hear, Kamoa.
It's what happened.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate you sharing that with us.
No.
And we're gonna talk a little bit more about that also, about being separated like that. What about you, Cynthia?
With me, the relationship was already strained with my kids. I knew we were out on the street for so long. I was homeless for 20 years, and they were growing up in the streets, and they had a lot of animosity towards me. But I knew I was going to go to prison. I knew I was on a joint suspension, and I was doing what I was doing. And so I signed over temporary custody to my oldest son because I knew I was going to get busted again. And I knew their dad was on the run also. So I was trying to protect them from the system. And what happened was when we got busted, they did try to put them in a system, but I had already signed over and had that letter notarized and everything with the younger kids, because I have 7. So there was 4 that were younger. They all ended up with my oldest son, Lewis. They never came to see me. I hardly got letters. They were very, very, very upset with me. I did get letters from my youngest. And when I did get out of prison, I was sober for the first time. They have never seen me sober. And that's what started. Like, I just knew that I needed to make up what I had done. And so the only way I could do that was to change my life. And now we're like this.
Wow.
It's a lot of trial and error. You know, you just cannot give up even when they expect you to.
I think that's going to reach so many people to hear about that. And that like, there's a lot of trauma that goes on in our families, and to want to like make a difference and to want to make a change and to work really hard. Cause I know you're really close to all of your kids and the grandkids. We know about your grandkids. So I had visits, and Christina, you had visits, Christina?
My visits were only twice a year. And the reason for these visits were because there was a Mother's Day event. I'm so grateful for that Mother's Day event that came once a year. And it was, the Get on the Bus program. And I would always volunteer help throughout the year, do what I needed to do to help build fundings for that Get on the Bus. Because if it wasn't for Get on the Bus, I wouldn't have been able to see my children. I wouldn't have been able to give them those hugs that they desperately needed. And, my mother has been raising them for, the 12 years while I was incarcerated, and she had dementia. So she wasn't able to remember how to get to me once you, would leave the area where she is used to being in. So visits were very rare for me. And, we literally survived on phone calls and the mail. And that was our connection. Yeah.
And then, so Kamoa talked a little bit about being separated from her children. And I'm not sure all of our listeners know exactly what happens in the system when you have a child and your family members can't take that child. I don't think people know what happens. I've been in conversations where people are pretty shocked when I explain to them that when I was pregnant with my son, and had I not had a place because of my time that I received, he would have gone immediately into the system. And I'm not sure that people realize that that's what's happening in our country and in our state. Do you guys, can you think of how the system would look that could help this situation, about people who are in their trauma and are in prison? Now, we have all known people who have worked on themselves. Everyone on this panel has. What can we do as a society to help kids stay with their parents? Like, what would that look like? What would that look like for Kamoa to be able to have a relationship with her children when she went to prison? Like, would that be like visits, like the foster parents having to bring?
For
Yeah.
me, had the foster parents been cooperative, because I already had the judge's cooperation, but I didn't have the foster parents' cooperation. They did not even want me to have phone calls with my kids. They felt like I was incarcerated and I did not deserve that. And I don't feel that they have the right to say what I do or what I don't deserve. And I do believe that had they allowed me to talk to my kids, not only would it have fostered a relationship between me and my kids, but it would have kept my kids. It'll keep your kids from, acting up and doing different things out there that they get themselves into because they're mad, they're angry, they're frustrated because they want to talk to their moms.
Yeah. And so the judge wanted you to have I didn't know, you just educated me on something, because I didn't know that was possible.
Yes. The judge gave me, he never took my parental rights, and he gave me the right to be able to speak to my kids. Actually, when we went to court, he gave me a court order for them to bring them to me while I was in the county, because I had to go out to court. So he mandated for them to bring me to see my kids, and they did that. However, he also mandated for them to give me weekly telephone calls and visits with my kids, which they did not do. They did not adhere to.
Wow. I didn't know that was possible. What about you, Cynthia? What would have helped you to maintain a relationship if there was like any policy or anything that, if the system could look differently, like what would that look like?
Like with me, I didn't have that much time, and my problem was more because of the drug issues and the homelessness, and it was like a revolving circle, and with so many kids, it was like I couldn't seek help anywhere. And there was, God forbid, I went to social services, they were trying to take my kids. Could you imagine if I would have went to them and said, hey, I'm drug addicted and I'm homeless and I have 7 kids, can you help me? They would have snatched my kids and put them in the system. I know this because I have people who did the exact same thing, not knowing, and their kids were taken and given up for adoption. So that is never the way. With me, when I was sitting in the county, the social services came and says, we're here to take, we're letting you know we're taking your kids. Instead of being like, oh, you lucked out, your kids are with your older son and they're good. They were there to tell me, and then they gave my son a bunch of hassle. Like, what the hell is going on? They were already fine. Why do you want to snatch them out and put them in the system? That it's just weird. How I look at it, and I've thought of this a lot because I would really like to get into it, is that there should be services where me being homeless, and whether I'm a drug addicted or not, I should be able to go to the social services and say, look, we're homeless. I can't get out of this cycle. I'm not trying to tear apart my children. Please help me. I've never worked a day in my life. I live off welfare. I need to get a job. I need some services. And they should be like, okay, here you go. And not rip your kids away and say, what they tell you now is they'll rip your kids away and say, okay, go get that job, go get that apartment. And when you have all that, you can have your kids back. That should not be that way. It should be like, let's put her here. Let's have some services or a place to be. Let her work. Let's help her with the job. Let's get her training. Let's get her into education. Let's, get her mental health. All these issues need to be addressed because there's something going on, and help her get into housing with her children instead of doing it the other way around, rip apart, trauma, and then be like, okay, now you fix it all on your own. Good luck. And that's how I see it.
It sounds like you're saying invest in people.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And Kamoa both
family.
Invest in people,
family.
invest in our families, right?
Yes.
Christina, on your visits at Get on the Bus, I actually worked at Get on the Bus before I came to ARC. So I'm super excited about that part because I love those kids that were on the buses that would go see their moms on Mother's Day.
Yes.
It was in the volunteers and the excitement, and I was happy to be able to be present with those kids because my son was grown already by the time I came home. But how did you maintain that bond on those visits?
The visits were actually, it was really hard to, keep that bond because for me personally, I was constantly looking at the clock, knowing that at a certain time that the visit was going to end. So I was trying to cram everything I could possibly do within the matter of 2.5 to 3 hours into this visit. At the same time, individually talk to each one of my children. And then when one thought that I was giving another more attention than the other, it became a match where they were seeking my attention. And by the next thing you know, the visit was over and they're crying and not wanting to leave. Like, oh God, it was so emotional. Sometimes, my children would say, Mommy, I'm staying with you. I'm not going this time. Or they would say, Mommy, I'm going to drag you out this door with me this time. You're leaving with me. And I would literally have to stop at the exit door and tell them, I'm sorry, I have to stay here. I'm doing everything I possibly can. And one day I will be able to leave out this door with you. But today I can't. And seeing their little heads, just drop and like defeated and not being able to do anything about it, just being in a place of complete helplessness on both of our ends. And I would always tell my kids, thumbs up, and they would smile, but tears would fall and they would give me the thumbs up, knowing that they were leaving. But I told them, I'm going to do everything I can to come home to you. And when I finally came home, I surprised them, walked in the door. They were like stunned. They couldn't believe it. They were like, you tricked me, you're here. My son just stared at me for days. He wouldn't even speak. And he's like, and amazed that, I said it for years and I'm now home and I'm just blessed. And I really thank Get on the Bus, because if it wasn't for Get on the Bus, I wouldn't have been able to see my children. I wouldn't have been able to give them the hugs, that once a year event. And that's pretty much all I seen them was once a year until they started a program recently in the last couple of years for Christmas. But if it wasn't for the bus, I wouldn't have been able to see my children.
All right. I know that was tough. I think for me too, being a lifer and having visits, that was the toughest for me, is that other moms got to say, like, just hold on till April 15th or just hold on till December 2020. But mine was always like, I don't want to start our relationship on a lie. So I'm not going to lie, that was just tough because I felt like I was taking his innocence away, like by having to deal with these like big world problems. Like, my problem is me. So I hear you on that. And that was devastating for me also, to just keep trudging away and saying, one day I'm doing all the right things. One day I'm doing everything I'm supposed to. So let's switch gears a little and talk about Reentry, about who you guys are today, but also, so I guess first question, like, how was your Reentry being a mom? And then also, like, everybody wants to hear about what your Reentry has been like so far. So I'm not sure, like, if you want to answer both of them together, or I'll circle back. So, Kamoa, do you want to answer?
Okay. You know, in my old age, what was your first question again? I'm sorry.
Oh God, I am with you. I'm with you. I'm like, you see me over here writing everything down. How is your reentry going? Number one. And then number two, how is your being a mom in reentry?
You know what? I'm somewhat like, I didn't tell my kids that I was coming home. The only one I told that I was coming home was my oldest. And that's because I was coming home to him. Instead of going to a program or anything, I came home to my son. So none of the rest of the kids knew that I was coming home. Mind you, they're all adults now. So I just cried when I saw my son, because he was already 29 years old, and he was so different. He was 17 when I left, and he was already a man. He was so big and, like, I guess manly. And so I didn't tell them that I was coming home. So when I got in the car, I had my best friend, Rayshawn Holmes, picked me up.
Oh, we know Sean.
She is my best friend, my support, and she has went through everything with me. But she picked me up, and when I got to my son, I got in the car and I called my kids. I called each one of them and I FaceTimed them, and I was like, "Well, what are you doing?" And they were like, "Mom, wait a minute. Why are you on the phone? Like, are you in a car?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm home." And they just started just going crazy. So that was a feeling within itself. The best feeling is being able to see each one of them, because they were in different places. They popped up on me since I've been home. Like my two daughters, they live in two different places, and they came together and came here when I got home. And they were like, "Mom, like, come pick us up from the airport." I'm like, "What airport? What are you talking about?" It's like, "We flew in, we're here." So just being able to see my kids' face was priceless. As far as how I'm doing right now, my kids, I'm happy to say, have rallied around me. They've made my transition easier. Like I said, I came home, my son gave me a place to live. Thank him. He helped me go look for a job and get me my first vehicle and all of the things. I'm very, very grateful to my kids. Also, let me give a shout out to Project Rebounds. I just got into SDSU for the fall because I obtained my associate's degree while I was locked up. And Project Rebound helped me get into SDSU. So these programs that's out here, they really work, and I'm so thankful for them, because continuing my education is something that I most definitely want to do.
That's great. I do not understand the not telling your kids and wanting to surprise them. I mean, you guys are like, I don't know. You guys, you're either really funny, or I don't even know. I couldn't even do that. Oh my gosh. But that is so funny. That's great that you got them a little bit. Christina, what about you? What has your reentry been like, or what is your reentry like as a mom?
Yes. So I would like to say that I am a survivor of domestic violence, and the relationship that I was in was with my children's father. So when we were incarcerated, we were both sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. So my children have been without a mother or a father for 12 years. And I am my children's mother and father. So Mother's Day is Mother's Day, and Father's Day is Mother's Day for me and my children. And, as I said, I surprised them because I've always had these dreams and these visions that I was going to be set free and I was going to go home, and that when I came home, I was going to drive up and surprise them. And I allowed myself to live those visions, to live those dreams. And I surprised them. The first night home, my children were, so like just shocked. They were speechless. And my oldest daughter, who is now 15, she was 2.5 at the time. She wanted me to sleep in the same bed with her. And I did so that night. And, it was, I could still sit here and feel the feeling. and to feel her breathing, and to look over at her and see the back of her head with her hair parted down the middle and her two little puffballs, in the same way I would do her hair as a little girl. And for her to be sleeping in that bed, and she was just comfort in sleeping. And all I did all night was cry. I cried all night long, like, Kimberly, like this, she's literally next to me. Like, this is such amazing blessing. And then she put me in the dark, which incarceration, we are never in the dark. So I laid there like a little afraid, a little nervous, but also very happy and content that I am safe, I am secure, and I am in the presence of my children. And each and every day, it is a new adventure. Each and every day, it is such an amazing opportunity to be able to be a mother. Now I'm involved with their schooling, with their teachers, with their after school programs. Now my daughters are, going to interviews. So talking to them about, the things that are nerve wracking to them, the interviews, and just being able to be being a mother has been the best part of my life, has been the greatest gift, is being a mother. And I look forward every single day I wake up to be a mom. And that's what allowed me to survive prison, is to knowing that I'm a mother and my children need me, and I'm going to make sure and be everything that they possibly need and want, even from behind the walls. And that's what I strive for each day.
That's right. That's wonderful to hear about your daughter. It's great to hear this. Cynthia, what about you? What has your reentry been like, and how being a re-entered mom, what is that like?
With me, when I first got out, they picked me up. My boys picked me up from Greyhound, I remember. And it wasn't as smooth as the other ladies. The kids were very sort of standoffish. But they had lost both their parents at the same time. We had both went to prison at the same time. We got picked up the same day. And they were very slow coming to it. They accepted me at arm's distance, and I don't blame them. I had really messed up. And so it was like a very slow and steady process of like, I'm not going to fuck up no more. Like, oh, excuse me. I'm not going to mess up no more. I'm not going to, sorry. I'm not going to mess up no more. I would go places. They would just show up there. The older ones, they would show up wherever I was. They would find out where I was. They would just wanted to make sure I was not getting into any more trouble. And I had to like slowly but surely prove myself. But I think the way I did it mainly was through education. Once I really buckled down and really got full force into my education, I just recently graduated with my master's. And I think that once I had showed them that I was steady in that, and then also too in reentry and doing, helping out in reentry, staying in my education, working and not going backwards, they have finally accepted me. And we have more of a relationship now.
How long, for people listening, how long did that take?
A long time. But it's funny because Christina was just saying something about her daughter sleeping with her. And my daughter still at 24 years old still sleeps with me.
Oh,
I share a bed with her, but it shows you, like, unfortunately, the trauma before that's still the way it is now. The 4 older ones are cool. The 3 younger ones are still going through whatever they have to go through, but it takes a long time. I've spoken with women when I was with women in non-binary. You can't force your children to accept you right away. You just it's basically what I did was like, I didn't, no matter what they said or what they did or whatever they did, I would just steady stay on the pace. I would not sway. I'm all okay. And I let them talk to me about things. I let them voice their opinion. I let them tell me about how hurt they were about the separation. I let them voice their opinion in a most respectful way, though. But I let them say what they needed to say. I gave a solution, and this is my solution. As long as I don't go back, I'm going to prove to you this is who I am now. And it took years. It literally does. But if you don't sway from it, you'll definitely get your results that you need.
So being consistent.
Yes.
Being consistent. Okay. And then what are has anybody else had any struggles that they would want to share? I mean, if
Yes, I would like to share that.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to, because this is something that's important. After being incarcerated for so many years, going to board, being found suitable, and coming home, I first was paroled to Stockton, which my family and children are in Sacramento. So for the first 30 days, I was paroled to Stockton, but thankfully my parole agent allowed me to stay in Sacramento at my brother's home and be able to see my children. So for the first 30 days, I was allowed to see my children whenever I wanted, spend the nights with them and do these things. And then as soon as parole was granted in Sacramento, I was sent to a transitional home, which I'm in now. And I'm only allowed to spend the weekends, overnight visits. So to be home with my children, to be given the blessing to spend the nights with them every day, to wake up with them, and then to be told I have to go to a transitional home to stay. My youngest, my son, didn't understand. And he was like, but why are you going to leave again? But why do you have to go? But why can't you stay? So then he stopped talking to me for a while. He became emotional again. He started to shut down and isolate. And the transitional program, yes, it's a great thing for people that need it, but for people like me who I believe don't need it, because I was a mentor in incarceration. I was a leader in the institution. I was certified in trauma informed in domestic violence as an advocate. I literally was certified by Dr. Stephanie Covington and La Casa in San Francisco. And I've done this work for many years. But to come home and to go right into a reentry transitional program, I believe was somewhat of a setback, not only for me, but for my children, because I believe I can do the line of work in a transitional home and teach groups and teach programs, teach the curriculum as well as, or if not better than, the actual instructors today, because of my skills, because of my education, because of the time I spent on me while incarcerated. And I do believe that that's something that needs to be adjusted, that people that do not need a transitional program, how the impact and effects on ongoing effects children and mothers. I think that that's something that needs to be looked into, addressed, and really evaluated on an individual case by case. Recently, I made my 90-day mark since I've been home, and my case manager in my treatment program told me, you're excelling in everything. There's no reason why you should be in treatment. You shouldn't even be in this sober living home. I'm going to request that you are allowed to be discharged. But because of board's recommendation of 6 months requirement, I have to continue another 87 days away, spending only the weekends with my children. And that's something that is a struggle for me. It's a struggle for them.
Can you talk a little bit about what the board, like what the requirement, like why that they did for our audience?
Yes. So when you go to the Board of Parole hearing for lifers, the requirements and recommendation is that after you are released from prison, that you do a mandatory 6 months in a transitional program doing treatment, ongoing treatment for drug and alcohol, for whatever causative factors are in your case. Like for mine, it had to deal with the usage of marijuana. For some people, it's anger management. For some people, it's domestic violence, unhealthy relationships. So there's classes that I have to attend 2 days a week for an hour and a half. And then I meet weekly with my primary counselor. And then I meet every 2 weeks with the case manager. And in these classes, I'm constantly going through my life experiences. So it's the wound that has healed, but now is constantly being, constantly being hit over again. And I think that there has to be a point to where enough is enough. When for me, when I'm a survivor of domestic violence. From childhood, I suffered from domestic violence in the home, which I was in a domestic violent relationship, which the crime happened because of a domestic violent relationship. And then to suffer, to go to prison with life without the possibility of parole, and then to to do everything and some that meets the standards to be able to be home, to be the woman and mother that I am today, and to come home and to go right back, I believe, to start where I have to now prove myself all over again in a program. And I think that it's unnecessary for some people.
And all those things that you're doing, they don't incorporate your family.
Yeah, and they don't incorporate my family. I incorporate them myself because it's my priority. It's important to me. So as I'm doing my programming within the treatment program, I'm also scheduling every single day, contacting my children, calling them, waking them up for school, checking on them after school, taking them to appointments, spending days when they're not in school and on the weekends when I'm not working, because sometimes I do work on the weekends, and being able to take them out places, spend that quality time with them one-on-one, and then also together, you know, and it's a lot of weight that a mother carries, a lot of weight that a person carries when they're going through a transitional program, working and being a mother to your children.
That's added.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Kamoa, what about you? Are there any struggles that you would like our audience to know about?
Most definitely. You're going to face struggles. You come home, even though my kids are grown, they were angry inside. You know, they were extremely angry that I left. She'll be 18 in June. So she has a couple of weeks before she turns 18, my youngest. And I'll never forget. I had to chalk it up as just cry about it, basically, because she told me that I should have thought about the fact that I was going to have her before I committed a crime. Mm-hmm. And mind you, my crime happened before she was ever born, because remember, I told you I was a cold case. So my crime had already happened like 10 years before she was born. But she said I should have thought about the fact that I was going to have her before I was out committing crimes or whatever. And she's angry. She's angry, and she doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to be bothered unless she wants something. And then she was like, Mom, you know, but I understand. I had to say, okay, again, I've been through the groups and the classes. I've been through parenting. Shout out to the groups, because had I not taken them, I wouldn't have understood that there's a different way to do things when it comes to parenting. So I had to give her that. I had to say that her feelings are valid. And if that's the way she felt, that I understood and that I was here when she decided she wanted to open up to me. And not a lot of people understand that that's what you go back and forth with your kids, because again, she's in foster care in Texas because she had went to go live with my sister. So I had no contact at all with her. You know, during this whole entire time, I didn't have contact with her until one social worker decided that I should. And I was about 2 years out from getting out. Even though I didn't know I was coming home at that in particular time, a social worker took the initiative to say, hey, your daughter needs you. And she put us in contact with each other. And that's when my daughter told me that I should have thought about having her. But we're on the mend, and I just constantly pray every day, you know, that it gets better. And as she gets grown and she starts to have children of her own, that she'll see that I love her unconditionally, no matter what. And again, I always say to my kids, before I hang up, even with my oldest kids, and I end my letters, I always end them with, I love you more than I love my life. Yeah. And so I tell her that constantly when I talk to her, just so she'll know. But when she has kids, she'll understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, I agree with that. Cynthia, what about you?
What was the question?
You've been home for a little bit. I feel like you kind of know about some of the struggles. Yeah, see, I knew you'd know. You any struggles that you would like to share with the audience about being a mom?
With me, yeah. With me, there was I also too was my childhood was heavy domestic violence in the home, and of course my marriage, and then there's a lot of gang violence, and there's a lot of all that comes with that life. And what I've struggled with is with the kids is that now that their dad's out and I'm out and we've moved away from the area, um, and then at first you get through that part where they're just angry and you just stay on your path, and you just show them by your actions that you're not going back. And somewhere along the line, some of them tend to follow your footsteps, really depending on how many you have, I guess. And then there's some that absolutely are just still pissed off and are rebelling. And all you could do is just, just talk to them, talk to them. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm going through it with one of my sons, and he's still so angry, and he shuts me down, and he goes back and he keeps going back. And all I could do is pray, and tell him, why do you want this life? Like, why would you want a life that you just already came out of? You're perpetuating the same thing. So it's not always a happy-go-lucky story and everything's great in the end. Sometimes it's still a struggle even years later, because they're so angry, and all you could do is just not give up. I mean, that's all I could tell people. I say it over and over again. Don't give up. Don't beat yourself up, and don't keep apologizing. Once you apologize, you sat down, you apologize for your actions, you heartfelt apologize, and then that's it. That's it. I'll listen to what you have to say. Always. I will always listen, but I will not keep apologizing, because that's all I could do. And that's something that I go by.
Do you think there's a difference between your boys and your girls and the way that or is it like not really a boy or girl thing? It's just kind of an individual person thing.
Well, it depends on the time, because when I first got out, my daughter was out there. She was out there doing the most, and I had to go get her. And so she started going to school. So I sort of like went right behind her. We ended up graduating from the same university. This girl was like, she was going down that path. So I think it's really honestly the time and how quickly your child will start to forgive you. With her, she right away after she got herself together, she started to forgive, and we have a really close relationship now. Where with my other son, he's still like, he's so angry, and it's like still after all these years. So I guess it's really, if I had to make a educated guess, I would say it's the person that's themselves. It's how angry are they and how much they hold on to that anger.
Yeah. What about you, Christina? Is there like a difference with your kids in their struggles, or is it like a personality more?
It's definitely for my son, he never had the opportunity to actually know what it felt like to have a mother in his life, because he was 6 weeks old. So he doesn't remember it. My mother has literally been grandma mom for 12 years. So for him, he struggles with the thought that one day he'll be living with me. And he struggles with the thought of leaving grandma, because grandma is all he knows. Grandma is mom. So I tell him, son, you will never have to pick and choose. And if you want to stay with grandma, you stay with grandma, but you will always have a room, a home in my house, no matter how old you are, no matter what you do unconditionally. I love you. And it has been a struggle, and for my oldest daughter, she's like attached to my hip. That's my twin. Like, she literally looks like me, acts like me, personality like me. She's the one that calls me, makes sure, like, if I don't call her, she calls me. Mm-hmm. Mom, what are you doing? How are you doing? What's going on with you? And she just turned 15. I was finally able to, celebrate these birthdays with my children. I have not yet been able to celebrate one birthday of my son yet, because his birthday's in January and I was released in February. But this January coming up will be the first year of my son's life. He'll be 13 years old, and I'll be able to celebrate a birthday with him, which is going to be amazing. And I have this whole plan for him, but there is a difference. And for my middle child, my youngest daughter, she's more rebellious. She's more, she wants attention. So she's looking for my attention and everyone else and everything else, and doing things that is causing negative attention. So I'm now teaching her to do things as an individual, to be a leader for positive attention. Because I expressed to her what the negative attention I was seeking led me down that path of incarceration. And that's something I don't ever want for her. So now I'm blessed with the education to be able to teach my children, to teach my nieces and nephews, because I have a very big family, of, how to love yourself, how to accept yourself, how to know your self-worth, your value, and to put yourself first. And I teach my children, my nieces and nephews, anyone who will listen, pretty much so. But there's definitely it goes back and forth. Sometimes it could be, my son believing he's the only son and there's no other. He always says, "Mom, when are you going to give me a brother? When are you going to give me a brother?" And he's been telling me this for years when I was incarcerated. And and to this day, he says, "Mom, when am I going to have a brother?" And I'm like, "You have 2 sisters. It's the 3 of us. We are all we have." And maybe one day we will think about this, that question later on. But it is a struggle for each one of my children. They struggle separately in their own individual way, and it has been, and I know it's going to continue to be that struggle because of all the time that we missed out on and trying to catch up on everything. And it just doesn't happen overnight. And it's going to take quite some time to find healing, to have that healing.
Wow. Thank you for that. Kamoa, what about you? Do you see is it different? Like, you have 7 kids. Can you give our viewers any insight into, is it personality? Is it back and forth?
For me, it's a little bit different. I don't think it's boys versus girls or girls versus boys. For me, I think it's the age range. Like my youngest, she was 5 when I left. So she doesn't know who I am. She was like, she told me one day, like, "You've never been there for me anyway." I'm like, "Girl, quit playing with me." Because the rest of them are a little bit older than her, so they know what type of mom they had already, because I was able to raise them. So there's a certain amount of respect, of everything that already comes with who I was before I left. But she doesn't. She's probably the one that doesn't have that and doesn't have the memories. And I think she's angry about that. So I just let her be angry. Talk to me when you want to, and "Mama love you, and here goes some money," and that make her happy.
That's right. We're about around time, so I just wanted to make sure that we get. I would like to hear from you guys. Of course, your closing thoughts, but before that, we would like to hear from you a message that you would give to the moms inside who might be struggling this Mother's Day. What would your message be to the moms inside? Kamoa?
Never, ever give up, period. I was sentenced to 26 to life. I did 13 years. And I'm telling you, when you alone by yourself in that bunk at nighttime, you don't have anything to do. Well, I didn't have anything to do. Let me use my I statements, but think about my kids. To think about my kids, to cry about my kids. I did that for a whole 13 years. You're going to do that. But I can also say for me, and this is just for me, I was a praying mother. I had people when I came in with my life sentence I told them I wasn't going to do my life sentence. They told me that I was naive. They told me, "You're going to do every bit of that. We're sorry you think you're different." I said, "I know that I'm different." And I believed. And I had people telling my kids, "Well, your mom's never coming home. She has a life sentence." I told my kids, "Don't listen to nobody, because they don't have the last say so over me." And I told them that I would be coming home. I didn't know when, but I knew that I was coming, and I never faltered on that. Never. That was my one thing. So I'll tell you, never give up. Even though they put me through it in the system with my kids, and I didn't get to talk to my kids. I went 5 years without talking to 3 of my kids, not even knowing where they were. But never did I stop praying over my kids. Never did I stop telling my kids that I love them. And if I could tell you mothers to do anything, it helped me when I got here. I walked out with a stack of journals. I journaled to my kids. So right now they can't say that I didn't think about them. They can't say that I didn't, wonder about what they were doing, because guess what? They can read about what my thoughts was on Mother's Day of 2016, So journal
That's
to
right.
your kids, let them know. And let me shout out JPay real quick, because I'm so serious right now. I've only been out for 5 months, but before I left, we were able to have tablets to be able to email our families back and forth. And I think that out of my 13 years of incarceration, that is the most amazing thing that they put in place, because having teenagers, they don't want to write you. They don't know what you're going through.
Yeah.
But guess what? You give them a computer in front of them, they will text you, they will email you.
Yep,
So I got
right.
so much more mail. So that outlet itself is amazing for mothers and their children.
Thank you, Kamoa. Thank you. Christina, what about you? What message would you give to the moms inside?
Yes. So, Kamoa basically spoke everything that my heart was desiring to say. And I want to say the exact same thing. Don't ever give up. I don't care if you're sentenced to 1 day incarceration, if you're sentenced to 10 years incarceration, a life sentence, life without the possibility of parole. Let me tell you, it is possible. It is possible. I'm a praying woman too, and I believe in my higher power. And I want to tell you, don't give up. Keep in contact with your children. If you have a communication with them, if you have an address for them, send them a letter, mail them something. Come up with creative ways to keep in touch with them, even if you don't hear back from them, even if you don't receive a letter from them. What matters is that they received it and that they know that you have reached out to them, that you're thinking of them. And if you're not able to, like Kamoa wasn't able to, I say do exactly what she did. Write in a composition book, write to them. Let them know the things you remember about them. For me, I wrote to my kids in a composition book. Each one had one, and I decorated it with fancy designs, and tape was our best friend, because everything was taped up for laminating. I laminated everything, and I make sure whatever favorite characters they have, whatever, favorite colors, anything that they were doing at that moment, I said in there the goals they accomplished and the goals that they were seeking, and everything I remember about their birth until I didn't have no more memory. So they have something to read. They have something to look back on. And I say, come up with creative ways. Trace your handprint on a piece of paper. For me, I would send them pencils in a little folder that was created for them to take to school with them. And after a while, they said, Mom, we're kind of sick of pencils. But for years, they would take it to school. Like, my mom sent me this. A child never forgets, no matter how old they are, about their mother. A child will never forget about their parent. No matter how old a child is, no matter how angry or upset, a child always wants their mother.
That's right.
So
That's
keep
right.
that in mind, no matter what. And don't give up, because you're next.
That's right.
Coming for you too. Don't give up.
Cynthia, you're
I want to say exactly what Kamoa said, and Christina, are you there? Exactly, especially Kamoa, she just totally hit it like the nail on the head, like perfectly. Also too, you want your kids when you get out, and as soon as you get out, because you definitely will get out, hit the ground running, get into those programs, do whatever you got to do to show the courts that you want your kids back. So that way the kids don't get put up for anything or whatever. And while you're in there, of course, keep in contact. I kept in contact. I would send letters even if I didn't hear from them. They always knew where I was. They always knew that I was thinking of them. Send them little drawings and stuff like that. And the younger kids did. The younger kids did right. The older kids didn't. But that's okay. But like I said, when I got out, I was like, I wanted my kids back, and I didn't give a crap what the courts had said. I enrolled right away. I enrolled the parity classes. I enrolled in drug addiction classes. Whatever the hell they told me I needed to do, that's what I did.
That's
funny
right.
thing.
All right.
That's what I had to do, and that's what I tell all moms: do what you got to do to get them back.
Thank you. And so I'm going to go ahead and close here. I can't believe it's already been an hour. We have to close here. But I wanted to thank you all for being here. I think you really made a difference today for our listeners. I think we talked about stuff today that people besides us who have done prison time may not be aware of. So I appreciate you. I thank you for that. And my closing thought is that ARC has joined a coalition called the Family Coalition. If someone could put that maybe in the comments, you can find, we are supporting the Family Unity Bill, and it is focusing on bringing more visiting days back to make visiting easier to keep our families together. And that's just the first step. We're going to fight together. We're with other organizations working really hard to keep our families together. So thank you so much for being here. And there is our fearless leader, Sam Lewis, to take us home. Take us home, Sam. Take us home.
Take us home.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring all of our family members home. I want everybody to know that, just as these moms all said, don't give up. Don't dare give up. Know that you have people out here fighting for you. This is just a small sample of the courageous people that are out here fighting for you. The moms that are fighting for you, and all of us that are standing side by side fighting for you to come home. So don't ever give up. Know that we're here for you, and that we're going to keep fighting until you have an opportunity to come home. And until then, just keep the hope alive and understand that we're here for you. With that said, I want to thank everyone for joining. And next week, you really want to tune in for our national advocacy policies. ARC has always been a state organization or organization that was focused on state policy. We're unveiling our national policies next week. So please join in next week, same time, same channel. Until then, take care, God bless, and stay safe.
Happy Mother's Day.